First up, we have Maggie Kelley Riggins, Director of Community Solutions at ACEEE. Maggie directs the community-focused work for ACEEE, especially related to industry and building codes, ensuring that disadvantaged communities benefit from energy efficiency investments and projects. She also supports ACEEE's efforts to drive policy and program innovation among local and state governments, utilities, and private sector stakeholders. She joined ACEEE in 2025. Prior to that, she worked at Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance, leading the billings team across the Southeast and the United States islands in the Caribbean and Pacific Oceans. She also has previous work experience in local governments across the Southeast region. Maggie holds a bachelor's of science in public policy from Georgia Tech, with a focus on energy, environmental, and social policy and sustainable communities. Welcome, Maggie. Thank you for sharing your time and expertise, and I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. And I'll say it does feel a little bit like coming home when I get to be on a call with my SIA friends and colleagues. It is good to be with everyone today. I'm going to share a little bit actually about a report that our team at ACEEE put out just about a year ago on building a workforce for energy efficient homes. If you are unfamiliar with ACEEE or you're getting to know us, we are a research nonprofit organization that really thinks about as we're thinking about the ecosystem for energy efficiency, be it in buildings, residential and commercial, but also the industrial manufacturing space and transportation, federal, state, and local policy, and what that means for investments and innovation and programs and the behaviors that people and actors might have to take. And we published that research, and I'm going to share a little bit of the research related to workforce today. As Gretchen said, I am the Director of Community Solutions at ACEEE. I joined the team last January in 2025. And under my bucket, really thinking largely about what does it mean for community to show up in our work, both in how community informs the research that ACEEE conducts and publishes, but also how our research can be useful for community. Workforce is one of those portfolios that's under our community solutions practice. And within the space, what I'll say is that I had no hand in writing this report. I think I was one of the interviewees, like they talked to me when I was in my position at SIA, and I directed them to a couple of great programs in the region. But all of the folks who wrote the report are currently unavailable to do this today. So I'm going to try to do it justice. But Rohini Srivastava, Roxy Alaya, and Alex Aquino were the incredible authors of this report. And I'm going to just share a little bit about it. So who are we talking about when we are talking about the residential building workforce? When we were thinking about the folks that we're going to really need to activate and to support in this larger ecosystem, we really kind of get into these 5 main key sectors, if you will. What are those jobs? Especially in the code space, we know a lot about building officials. We need building officials. As a large part of the work that we do. Obviously, the trades in particular, folks who are in the technician space, electricians, plumbers, framers of structures, et cetera, are folks who do the modeling and systems analysts. We don't always think about those folks as a part of our workforce, but it's really important, especially as a lot of our tech starts to move more and more software-based. And how we model are getting to be more and more complicated energy codes, that these folks are thought about as a part of our workforce. Obviously, our energy efficiency contractors, kind of thinking about the engineers, our HVAC contractors, our weatherization technicians, and then of course our educators are a key portion of our a sector that's needed to be in this conversation around workforce. And really, we're going to lean into all of those. in this research where we really were looking at what does it take to build a workforce for energy efficient homes in particular, we started to like really take these key sectors and think about key skills. So when we were hearing from the folks that we were talking to and the research, what we kind of really narrowed down into were that these were the key skills that folks thought were important for us to focus on. And that's everything from system design and performance modeling, which really, more so leans into the kind of thought process of, do you understand how energy performance works in a home? Can you model and design high performance systems? Are you able to track codes and comply with codes? Are the drawings doing that work? From systems integration, kind of thinking about how you size and install a heat pump or a ventilation system to the right size of a home. Things are happening according to a local code and being implementing that code or manufacturer specifications correctly. And of course, things like how we apply new demand response technologies or new technologies generally. For system evaluations and systems testing, thinking a lot about those air leakage and blower door tests and assessments, really critical to understanding what is actually happening in the building. And things like energy use analysis and math. Math is so critical, construction math, but building science math as a part of the system. Data acquisition and analysis. So how are we collecting data both from the field, but utilizing those computing skills to calculate energy savings or making sure that databases are managed as we're keeping track of all the plans that might come into a local government. And then lastly, operations and maintenance, the really critical piece around commissioning and testing, maintaining and servicing equipment and buildings, and troubleshooting when equipment fails, because we know that happens more often than we would like it to, but having those skills is really important. But there's lots of roadblocks to these pieces. And I'm actually going to walk through each of these and kind of offer a little bit of what we heard and kind of some ideas of solutions that might that we found would be helpful in this research. But this is kind of where we really found the challenges to be. So let's go through each of them. From low awareness and negative perceptions about careers is one of the major roadblocks. And I should say each of these 5 roadblocks we really saw kind of being at all equal footing. We tried to see, like, is there one that folks think is higher priority than another? And really it kind of came out where all of these are really at the same level and have equal importance. So that low awareness and negative perception about careers, we know that there's not a whole lot of information around these careers in formal school education. And even when you're in this space, that defined network of what it looks like to build an effective career path is lacking. There's a lack of educational resources and outreach to non-English speakers and non-native English practitioners. There's also, within these pieces, a negative perception and bias of joining the building trades. It's viewed as being less prestigious of a profession than maybe the 4-year schooling and college track that has been really pushed on multiple generations now for a few decades. And then lastly, there seems to be, and what we found, a contractor bias at times that goes against doing energy efficiency projects. And that is a variety of things, from unwillingness to learn about these new technologies, having limited funds to actually send people to upskill them, or just lack of exposure and experience with those technologies. I remember having someone tell me, oh, well, I don't want to mess with a heat pump water heater because I don't know, or a HVAC heat pump because we don't need more heat in our homes in Miami. Right. So like the lack of understanding and perception of the technology itself has this negativity. And as a way to combat that, right? Like thinking about as this group and this working group and pieces meet, how do you create pathways to conducting outreach and providing information about the jobs and careers that exist in this space, that from a couple of slides ago, right? Thinking about what it looks like to do that, of course, with this list here, but also in additional languages, and really leaning on groups, organizations, and folks with expertise to be able to do that. And then braiding multiple funding sources to broaden outreach and expand program offerings. There's also the barrier of having a shortage of programs that integrate technical skills, soft skills, employer needs, and market demands. And what we found is that often there's a failure to integrate that up-to-date technical content with soft skills training. We hear all the time, soft skills, soft skills, soft skills. No one knows how to talk to anyone anymore, right? And when you're entering someone's home or you're building someone's home, that's really critical. There's also this absence of family supporting wages to cover the cost of training for either new occupants or lost business for the time that's spent away from projects in the field. This often can feel like it's low priority to make these programs inclusive and representative of the populations that they serve. And we see a lack of support for training the trainers, right? And employers to improve the learning experience, right? There's not really a process for trainers to learn how to teach more of those soft skills or incentives to do so. And so really kind of in that space of thinking about how partnerships might come together to collaborate, and understanding what that balanced approach might look like, developing curriculum that's based on market needs, and coaching for participants, especially in underrepresented populations, to prepare them for specific occupations, interviews, spaces that really allow for not just meeting the market demands and the technical skills, but those soft skills that so often are critical as a part of this work. Insufficient skills due to lack of access of open source standard curriculum and training. This is one of those things that I know many folks who are on this call today are working on and working deeply on, is that there is kind of a lack of national skill standards. You might have different things in different states when it comes to energy related jobs. Our traditional academic training programs focus a lot more on basic academic knowledge than really the field skill side of like, how do you size and install new technologies or things of that nature. And then the length of our trainings are long, and certifications, you might have to fly to another state, right? And can be disruptive to business. And so really tackling that by having that standardized curricula, providing credentials they're really focused on being employer recognized, and offering lots of ways to have that training. Inadequate support to access some new jobs, professional development, and career advancements kind of touches on some of those other points earlier, but there really is a lack of support services and wraparound services. There's limited job preparedness and a lack of access to that career planning and post-training advancement. There's a lot of training and praying, and not a lot of training and placing, right? And so really thinking about partnering with local and community-based organizations to really come in and provide those services that you as a technical trainer, the technical pieces might not have or be in the space to offer, recruiting employers into workforce programs that have that commitment to hire graduates, and obviously compensating folks for their time. And then lastly, and I'm running short on time here, so lastly, the burdensome contractor licensing requirements and business practices came out loud and clear. Skilled trades are obviously usually licensed by states. Each state has a different license. As we know in the South, almost every state shares a border, and people work in lots of states all at once, right? And so there's this piece around how do you offer and think about that policy side of licensing, kind of that standardizing piece. Having the internal resources, personnel, and capacity, and incentivizing, and offering financial support for folks that might have to take time away from income earning projects in order to think deeply about energy efficiency and energy practices. And there's a role for everyone. In the report, we actually go into the details of which each of these stakeholders, which you can see in the first column, might actually be able to engage with. And this slide just kind of shows you where we see those folks showing up within each of these barriers. But we do encourage you to kind of think about who are your partners? Where do you show up on the stakeholder list, and how might you engage both within the BRESE collaborative, but outside of that in your day-to-day work around these barriers for workforce. And I'll end with saying, read our report. I think Sam might drop that report in the chat here in a second. But the intent really is that a high skilled and growing workforce is really needed to carry out the delivery of any of the energy efficiency programs and projects and policies that state and local governments might be implementing. And this can only really be achieved with a workforce that's ready to translate those into action. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. I appreciate you sharing that wealth of knowledge with us all. I don't see any questions in the chat right now. I think some folks are probably simmering. I know I tend to be a crock pot with that. Gretchen, I think we have time. I had one question that came up while Maggie was talking. And if any questions come through, please send them, folks, and I'll save them, and we'll make sure that we connect with Maggie to get those answered for you. But Maggie, I was wondering, when you showed the challenges in residential and building that you were talking about, what do you think that people who are working outside the industry often underestimate as a challenge?
I think people often underestimate the fact that, if you look around most major areas, you see cranes in the sky, you see folks working, right? Like there is a perception that there are people doing these jobs, and there are. And we are also at an insufficient level of people for the number of projects that might be in the pipeline, or the skill level of that might be in that space. And we have a lot of people who are looking for really good work that's with their hands, that is, supporting family sustaining wages, that allows for them to give back into their communities. And so, I think that misconception of, oh, well, obviously all this building is happening. I live in downtown Atlanta, and I can look out of the window and see and hear a variety of construction as we get ready for the World Cup in 30 days. But right, there's this perception that we have a lot of folks already in this space, and therefore we've got it figured out, when really this space rapidly advances quite often, and has in the last 2 to 3 years, let alone the last decade. And it's going to be really important that we upskill all those folks who are out on job sites right now, but also recruit and train and get new folks into our space, because there are a lot of projects that are waiting to happen.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Maggie. Okay, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Maggie. I love the slide that shows all of the sectors that really need to be involved to move this needle, because I think collaboration is the key, and it's partly why we're doing these working groups. So that was a great kind of roadmap for folks to see, who am I not engaging right now? And I really appreciate, this paper overall. Is there a next step for the paper? Do you see you guys doing another, I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but
no,
another
it's
research project?
On the spot, but also maybe an open invitation. We are currently conducting research in what are effective partnership models.
Perfect.
So you had a great segue, and Gretchen, you didn't know about that. So we are kind of taking that first image I showed and a lot of the other things that we know, and really looking at what partnership models are actually working for these training programs, and then how can we, let folks know and be aware of, oh, well, we want to expand our program or we want to start a program. How can we, what parts are we missing or who are we not investing in or investigating in our local areas? And actually, I'm really excited to hear more a little bit later about one of the partnerships that's going to get shared on this call, because there are also innovative partnerships that people aren't necessarily thinking about with universities or utilities or others that we think are going to be important to highlight. So if you've got fun, great programs for us to think about and include in that research, we'd love to hear it.
That's perfect. That's great to hear. And so everybody bookmark ACEE's website and be on the lookout for that next level of research. I think that's really exciting. Okay, thank you so much, Maggie. Really appreciate it.